Hello! It's been a minute since we've done a book thoughts, but I have something that I want to share. So I read the first two books of the Videssos cycle. Those are The Misplaced Legion and An Emperor for the Legion. And I wanted to share my thoughts about them. So the general conceit of these books is that they are historical fantasy, alternate history kind of thing. So we start off following a small legion offshoot, a task force basically, in Gaul during Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul. And they are caught in an ambush and they're fighting for their very lives. And in a duel between the two commanders, their magic swords hit, magic happens, and the army and that one Gallic leader, that one Celtic man, are transported to a different realm. They are in a magical setting, and the country they find themselves in is Videssos. Now, the fun thing here, especially fun, is that while they left Rome during the time of Caesar, Videssos is very much based on the later Eastern Roman Empire, specifically, the Byzantine Empire from 1,000 years later. The technological advancements are all consistent with that. The way that fighting happens, the way that politics works, all very consistent. Part of this consistency comes from the fact that the author, Harry Turtledove, who is famous for writing various alternate histories, is a history PhD. His particular area of study was the Byzantine Empire. So it has a very good, authentic feel to everything. So we have this legion who has found itself far away from home in a setting they don't understand, with some technological advancements that they don't understand, but they have advancements that maybe were not, I don't want to say were lost, but were underappreciated, by the time of the Byzantines. And that's what we find ourselves in. They signed themselves up as a mercenary legion to the emperor and are immediately wrapped up and engaged in the politics of the empire itself, and also the conflict with the pseudo-Sassanid, let me try that word again, Sassanid, or Persian, Parthian empire out to, well, in this world it's the west. In the real world, it was the east. And there's a good bit of magic that happens, but it's all very, I don't want to say realistic magic, but it's spectacular. It's not spectacular shows. It's very effective magic. Things happen that are impressive feats due to magic, but it's not, wiping out armies with fireballs, because that would really undercut the whole point of having a legion as your main focus. So the other thing I want to say, there's a couple things I want to say about this book. Firstly, it is very good at explaining and introducing and getting you up to speed without you needing a impressive knowledge of either Rome or Byzantine history. It tells you what you need to know, and it tells it to you very straightforward. And I think that even without any background, you can really enjoy these books. The second thing is that is related to that is if you have a history background, I think you can get a little something extra out of these books. Just little, but they're just like snide comments here or there made by different people that perhaps would, I feel like they'll go right past the people who don't know it, and they won't necessarily feel like they're even missing anything, which is, I think, the best way to do it. And if you're a particular scholar of Byzantine history, you might even be able to pick out who the real-life corollaries of various people are, and perhaps have a notion of how some events are going to shake out. Things don't shake out exactly like history. This is indeed a parallel history, but history has some of the best events. So why not steal what you like from history? I want to go back to the magic systems for a second. The Empire has a very religious connected magic system. So basically it's the church. The church worships Phos, the sun god, and their academics and priests are often powerful mages. Not often, I don't want to say often, but their mages are priests and academics connected with the church. So we don't have any magicians within the Legion, but they quickly make some friends who are powerful mages. There is a very dark and evil magic coming from the Nemesis Empire, and it is so blatantly evil in its context, and it's also connected to their religion. So they worship the god of evil of Phos's religion. Phos's religion, Videssos' religion. The Empire's religion is in one form or another spread across most, but not all of the world we hear about. So it's not a universal religion, and the fact that they are set up as explicitly conflicting religions between these two empires is very interesting. It's very interesting indeed. There's a lot of interesting things done with the religions and the heresies and the offshoots and the politics between them. That makes for some very good character interaction, along with good world building. So we follow one main character, the Legate of the Legion. It was a very wise choice, I think, because he is a soldier in an attempt to advance his political career, like many legates were. So he is both a soldier and a politician, which means that he can intuit a lot of what's going on politically and through that explain it to the reader. It's a very useful shorthand. And then also it allows us to engage in the battles. I will say that I found the battles to be very well written. I found them very satisfying. The way that they were described, the way that things moved forwards over the course of a battle, and the twists and turns, and the way that sometimes things just unaccountably go wrong. I will say that I found there were a few points where things were going right that was unexpected, and I wish there had been perhaps a bit more foreshadowing. On most points, it worked very well. On most points, the foreshadowing was perfect. It left me guessing. It left me looking for answers, but the answers still were able to take me by surprise. One particular case in the second book, in Emperor for the Legion, there was a point where I understood how things happened the way they did, and historically I would find it totally reasonable, but when you're reading a fiction book, you want... sometimes reality is unrealistic. It's just the way it is. The other big point I have to complain about, and it only happened once. It was only one point, and it was only a few pages, but it's a pet peeve. It's a real pet peeve. So early on in the book, our main character meets a woman who's interested in him, and she's not available, and then she becomes available for reasons. But there was a riot, and some men were going to do some very not nice things to her. and he saves her, and that immediately catalyzes into a relationship. Now, what's especially confusing about an author doing this, and this is not an uncommon thing, but it does not speak to the truth of the situation and the characters. That is not the human response to that situation. What makes this especially confusing is in the second book, a different character finds themselves in a not entirely dissimilar position, where the violation was more implied than in the first instance, but she reacted much more realistically. She had emotional issues at the moment. She didn't want to be touched, things like that, even though she was very closely bonded to the person that she was around now post violation. So really, it's quite something that you can get it so wrong the one time and actually do some justice to it the second time. I don't know if that was a personal growth, if the one was just by demands of the plot, or what, but it was worth mentioning and it was worth discussing here. In these first two books, we have, I think, covered most of the great military scenes that you can. We had a siege, we had a massive army battle with wings to the army. We had smaller units fighting. We had cavalry versus infantry, infantry versus infantry. We had sea battles. We had long campaign marches and the logistical problems. We had a fighting retreat. We had all of the immediately jumping out, I want to see my army do this in my fiction. And I think they were all handled very well. I think they were all told in ways that would be intuitive to people who don't have the background, and in ways that would potentially be exciting for them. I can't necessarily speak to that for everyone, because I, thought reading Caesar's History of Gaul that those battles were exciting, but I understand that those could be dry for people who aren't necessarily as into it as I am. So that's the thoughts I have on this book. Overall, I definitely recommend it. I look forward to reading further books in the cycle, as it's called, and I want to know more about this world and see what happens with our characters, and I think it is a good time overall. If you want me to keep doing more book thoughts, just let me know. I have read a lot of books, mostly nonfiction, but a good bit of fiction too. I can talk about things that I've read in previous times, even. Some things I don't like, maybe. But I will leave it at that for now. Like this and comment on this so I know what you're thinking, and subscribe if you want to see whenever these kinds of things come up again. And that will be it for now. Have a good one. Bye-bye.